Hi, I am Jessica Harper, and I have a confession. For years, I showed up to every family gathering expecting warmth, only to find my chair empty and my name crossed out in red ink. I stood there, heart pounding, wondering, was I ever truly welcome? I mean, imagine walking into a place full of relatives, everything set up, and realizing you weren't invited. On purpose. What do you do when the people who're supposed to love you decide you don't belong? That moment when your mother looks you straight in the eye and asks, "Did you really think you were invited?" It changes you. And that's where my story begins. Now, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, I'd love to know, what's your local time and where in the US are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. I didn't cry that night. Instead, I asked the hostess to let the owner know I'd arrived. They chuckled, but then he came out, took my hand and kissed it, like I owned the place. Funny, because I did. Let me take you back to the moment everything changed, the very moment my family discovered I wasn't just some forgotten daughter at a dinner. I hope this story moves you, surprises you, maybe even shakes something loose in your own family dynamics. Let's dive in. That ping on my phone came just as I stepped out of the shower, wrapped in nothing but a towel and steam. A photo appeared in my messages. My entire family smiling around a dining table, wine glasses raised as if in celebration. The photo was geotagged at La Bella Cucina, the upscale restaurant my parents reserved every Thanksgiving, just outside Boston. My heart stuttered. There I was in my Boston apartment, knowing for a fact I wasn't there. No text, no invite, not even a last-minute heads up. Just red ink, crossed-out seating. I scrolled the image. Mom and Dad at the center. My older sisters Emily and Karen flanking them. Emily's husband clinking his glass. Karen's even younger new husband raising his own. My niece Lily caught mid-tent, sparkly headband and everything. Everyone looked like they belonged. And there it was. Caption, family, complete. Mentioned me by mistake, tagging Jess Harper. I stood in my living room, damp, staring. Then I remembered Emily's voice just a week ago. "Don't let Jess ruin the vibe. Not even a whisper," she'd said to Mom, in low, syrupy tones. I'd brushed it off as tension. Now I knew it was real. So I got dressed. Black slacks, crisp blazer, no heels. I wasn't there to dramatize. I tipped the overdriver through Seafood Alley, repeating in my head, if I wasn't meant to belong, I'll arrange a time to hear that to my face. I stepped into the restaurant's glass foyer, took in the vintage lanterns, warm wood tones, couples strolling past. I said, "Hi, I'm here for the Harper party." The hostess checked the list. "No reservation under Harper for you." My voice stayed calm as I said, "I'm the daughter." My mom was suddenly right behind me, makeup perfect, jewelry subtle but expensive. "Did you really think you were invited?" she asked. I turned slowly. The hostess repeated, "No seat available." The crowd glanced over. My father, silent, staring at the wine menu. My mother's thin smile told me everything. Emily smirked. Karen laughed into her elbow. No seat left, period. So I nodded once, quiet acceptance. Then I said, "Could you please let the owner know Jess is here?" I kept my tone neutral. My mother's eyes flicked when I used my birth name, Jessica. She scoffed. "The owner doesn't take walk-ins, darling." She laughed. I held her gaze, waited. The host hesitantly looked back down the hallway. He muttered he'd check. Behind me, Mom hissed, "You think the owner even knows who you are?" Emily giggled. Karen toasted her glass in mock celebration. My hand sweated, but I didn't flinch. I didn't ask for attention. I asked for the place I belonged. And then he arrived. Michael Lee, owner of La Bella Cucina. Tall, confident, naval blue jacket fitted precisely. He didn't smile until he saw me. His voice was velvet. "Jess," he said, He paused as if savoring the name. Long time. The room hushed. A few diners murmured, that sound of a wine glass scraping china under quiet tension. He looked to the host. Table for Miss Harper. I'll handle it. The host nodded and hustled. My mother stepped forward, smiling cool and rehearsed. Michael, it's family night. Michael paired with her politely. Then tonight is incomplete without her? My breath caught hearing that. The host reconfigured chairs, the private room shifted, diners stared. I filled the seat Michael held open with no drama, just certainty. My mother set her face. Emily's lips twitched. Karen's gaze flicked between me and Michael. My father cleared his throat, still silent. The moment hung there, electric. I lifted the napkin, controlled, composed. Mom snapped. How do you know him? Still in her poised tone, but with a cutting edge. I met her eyes, measured. I worked for him. She tisked. You, a server? I let the power sit there. No, I was in management, front of house operations, budgeting, hiring, staff training. The air changed. Michael confirmed softly. She shadowed me. Her systems were used across all locations. Emily laughed. Charming, thought you went into nonprofit. My tone stayed calm. That was easier than picturing me leading restaurants. My father's head snapped up, eyes giving away his realization. Michael continued, she financed the expansion here in Boston. Her name's on the founding lease. The guests shifted, forks paused mid-air. Karen and Emily's husbands both went pale. Mom's posture stiffened. I watched the moment settle. I didn't fight. I let them fight their own unraveling. Then a server came out saying, this amuse-bouche is from her original fall menu draft. Eyes widened at kitchen staff acknowledging me. Another confirmed, inspired by Jess's seasonal rhythms. Michael leaned in. She's stronger now. I smiled inside. No one had fought for me publicly like this. And this was just the taste of what was next. Then Lily, my little niece, grabbed my hand. Auntie Jess, I wish you were sitting next to me. The table froze, heads turned. My sisters' faces went blank. My father's fork paused mid-chew. Tears pricked my eyes. I squeezed Lily's hand. Words formed, but I held them. The moment spoke for me. Mom squeezed her lips and whispered to herself, let's not push it. I didn't reply. I only looked at her, unwavering. She wanted anger, expected spectacle. But I'd grown out of performing. I wasn't angry. I was resolved. I'd stopped pretending. Quiet erupted. The host fetched my water calmly. It was an official seating now, no fanfare, just truth. Lily's whisper echoed through me. I wasn't just a guest. I built everything long before they realized I mattered. The glass partition shimmered in the restaurant's low light, but just behind it I caught a glimpse of something that stopped me cold. A folded chair. Not hidden, just tucked away. And there it was, unmistakably mine. A laminated name card wedged between the slats, Jessica Harper, typed neatly, now folded at the corners like someone had tossed it aside. A young assistant manager hovered nearby, watching me notice. He walked over nervously. That seat was originally assigned to you, ma'am, he said. We were told to remove it, said it wouldn't be needed. His voice dropped, eyes avoiding mine. My pulse thumped, not from surprise, but recognition. This wasn't negligence, it was intention. Behind me, Michael shifted, calm but alert. Who gave that instruction, he asked. I didn't need to hear the answer. I turned, just loud enough for my family to hear. I know exactly who. No one looked up. Karen's fingers twitched around her wine glass. Emily inspected her manicure. My mother's jaw tightened, but didn't crack. She didn't deny it. She didn't have to. I returned to my seat, spine straight. I wasn't shaking, not this time. For years, I'd accepted the exclusion as accidental, maybe circumstantial, but now, finally, I understood. I wasn't forgotten. I was deleted. My phone buzzed gently in my purse. I pulled it out, screen glowing with the text. Val, Karen's husband, had sent it hours ago. Mom says if you show up, don't make a scene, don't embarrass yourself. I stared at the words. Don't embarrass yourself. Like I was some unstable element that needed managing. I held the screen up to Michael. He read it, lips flattening, then looked at Karen with something close to disdain. Want me to say something? He asked, voice low. No, I said, steady. I've got it. I turned to Karen, who was pretending to sip her wine. You didn't want me here, that's clear, but could you at least be honest about it? She rolled her eyes. You always make everything about you. I tilted my head, not angry, just tired. No, I just stopped pretending it wasn't. Across the table. Emily's voice cut in, smooth and sharp. You should be grateful we even let you stay, Jess. Don't turn this into another one of your ego moments. I smiled. Grateful? I repeated slowly. For what? For being erased and tolerated like a smudge on your pretty evening? Dad still hadn't spoken. His fork moved methodically, every slice of his steak deliberate. I turned to him. Dad? I asked, not accusatory, just hopeful. He paused, a long second, then another bite, still no eye contact. That, more than anything, stung. More than the text, more than the omission. That hurt. Even now, I was still the daughter he wouldn't claim. Emily didn't miss the opportunity. He's just trying to keep the peace, Jess. Peace? My throat tightened. Peace had always meant ignoring me. Peace was their code for silence, mine, not theirs. That's when Lily tugged on my sleeve again. Her eyes were wide, earnest. Auntie Jess, she whispered, can you sit next to me next time? The table froze. The smallest voice had the biggest impact. Karen's face flushed, her husband stared at his plate. I leaned in and smiled at Lily. Next time, I whispered, I'll sit right beside you. She grinned and skipped back to her seat as if the moment hadn't just cracked something open. Michael leaned in, his voice low. She sees what they pretend not to. He was right. Even a child could tell when someone didn't belong, but what hurt wasn't being the outsider, it was how easy they made it look. Like the seat had never been mine to begin with. I took a sip of my wine, eyes forward. My mother smoothed her napkin, then, like clockwork, delivered her next Next time, she said coolly, let's not push it. She wanted control, wanted to frame the night as her own, to reduce me to a footnote in their performance. But I was done playing the supporting role. I didn't respond with a quip. I didn't need to. My silence was its own rebellion. That's when I saw it. Behind the server's station, a neatly stacked folder of guest assignments and event documents. I rose, casually, and asked one of the junior managers if I could see the original seating list. He hesitated but retrieved it. There it was. My name, printed clearly, highlighted in red, then crossed out with a heavy black line. Michael saw it too, his jaw clenched. This wasn't a mistake, he said. No, I said, it was strategy. Emily arched a brow. It's just seating, don't be dramatic. But it wasn't, not anymore. It was the last piece of proof I needed that they'd conspired to keep me out again. I stood, tapped the rim of my glass gently. Once, twice. The hush returned. No one knew what was coming, but they all knew they wouldn't like it. Tonight isn't about drama, I said. It's about clarity. I pulled out a folded copy of the article they'd once claimed was about Karen's community project, an article that quoted me, word for word, and credited her. I read it aloud. The quote, "We don't serve food, we serve futures." My line, my voice, rebranded in someone else's bio. "You stole this," I said quietly. Karen scoffed. "It's just a quote. Don't be petty." "No," I replied, "it's not just a quote, it's an erasure." Michael stepped in, placed a small envelope on the table. Inside is the original proposal, filed under Jess's name, not Karen's, not Emily's, hers. The table tensed. Dad set his knife down. Emily narrowed her eyes. Karen opened the envelope with shaking fingers. Her face lost all pretense as she read the signature line. My signature. My date. My program. Mom whispered to no one, "I told them not to let this escalate." But it had already escalated. Not through yelling, but truth. And that was always more dangerous than any scene. The waiter resumed service like nothing had happened, but the energy in the room had shifted. It wasn't tense, it was exposed. Like someone had pulled the rug out and the dust underneath was finally visible. I sat, composed, sipping my water this time. I wanted to feel every breath of this moment without the haze of wine. Across the table, Emily poked at her salad with a fork, not eating, not speaking. Karen kept rereading the document like the ink might disappear. My father rubbed his temple. My mother, as always, straightened her posture, like good posture made her morally superior. And then I saw it. My name, again, this time on a printed copy of the restaurant's opening gala invitation. It was faint, in the margin, scratched out in pencil. The handwriting? Karen's. I knew her loops, her slant. I remembered handing her that same invite years ago, back when we were pretending to care about each other. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I turned to Michael and said, "Do you have the original registration forms?" He nodded and pulled them from a slim folder he'd tucked under the bar. He passed them to me without fanfare. I placed the stack on the table like cards in a game I was tired of playing. My name was everywhere. Application signatures, tax filings, the LLC formation paperwork. All of it in black ink, all of it predating any involvement from my family. I stood, walked around the table slowly, letting each sheet drop in front of its respective thief. Karen got the quote. Emily got the project plan. My mother got the grant award I had written and submitted under my name, but received under hers. My father finally looked up. "Jessica?" he said. Just that. No follow-up, no apology, no correction. His tone wasn't warm, it was regretful. That slow, creeping kind of regret that shows up when you realize silence didn't protect anyone. It just delayed the reckoning. I leaned toward him slightly. "I don't need you to fix it. I just needed you to admit it happened." He blinked once, said nothing more, and that was its own answer. Behind me, the hostess whispered to a staffer. Then I heard a soft voice at my elbow, Lily again. "You know," she said, "Mama always said you weren't good at real jobs, but I think you're good at a lot." I knelt down to her level, touched her cheek gently. "Thank you," I whispered. "You see more than most grown-ups." She nodded, curls bouncing, and ran back to her seat. It wasn't about revenge, not anymore. It wasn't about being louder. It was about being clearer. I'd given them space to fix it quietly. They chose spectacle, so now I chose evidence, and I wasn't done. Karen hissed under her breath, "You act like this is your empire." I tilted my head. "It is," I said. "You just convinced yourselves I was a visitor." Emily slammed her water down. "We all contributed." I turned to her. "Yes, but not to this, not the start, not the structure, not the risk." The silence hit again, that vacuum-like quiet that falls when denial is no longer useful. Michael cleared his throat, voice level. "For what it's worth," he said, "this restaurant wouldn't exist without Jess. Every operational detail, from the server's training to the layout of the wine room, came from her vision. She funded the initial 6 months lease herself. With her own money." Emily barked a bitter laugh. "She had money? From where?" I leaned forward, calm. "From years of work. Management consulting. Contract roles. Saving. You didn't ask because you didn't care. It was easier to pretend I'd failed so you could feel like you succeeded. The worst part wasn't the words. It was watching the truth finally hit and seeing them flail in it, like people caught in rain without ever believing clouds existed. My mother stared at her plate. Karen said nothing. Emily folded her napkin into a triangle, like that symmetry might give her some control. Michael placed a fresh glass of wine in front of me. "No one's going to rewrite your name again," he said. I believed him. The rest of the dinner passed in slow motion. Food came and went, delicate plates of beet tartare, seared scallops, and tender lamb cuts no one truly tasted. It wasn't about the food anymore. It was about what couldn't be digested. I could see it on every face. My mother, who had orchestrated decades of silence with a single raised eyebrow, sat still as stone. Karen fidgeted with her wedding band. Emily checked her phone like it might offer escape. And my father, he just kept eating, each bite an effort to stay invisible in a room where that wasn't possible anymore. Then came dessert, crème brûlée with orange zest, my recipe, one I had drafted during my first year of menu planning with Michael. A junior chef walked by and nodded respectfully. "Your idea still holds," he said. I gave him a soft smile. That moment meant more than anything at that table. That acknowledgement, that memory given back, that truth confirmed. Then, a text popped onto my phone. It was from an unknown number, but I knew the tone. "You've made your point." No name, just that line. I looked at Michael. "She texted." He didn't need to ask who. "You want to reply?" I thought about it. Thought about every apology that never came. Every moment I was asked to shrink so others could shine. "No," I said. "I've replied enough tonight." After dessert, the family tried to regroup. They talked weather, school schedules, real estate. But it was hollow. Small talk offered up like bandages for a wound they didn't want to admit was bleeding. I watched it all, then excused myself quietly and stepped into the restroom. There in the mirror, I saw a woman I didn't recognize at first. Not because she looked different, but because she finally looked whole. No tears, no trembling lip, no fear, just clarity. I washed my hands slowly, like rinsing off years of pretending. Then, as I stepped back out, I saw her, Lily, waiting by the door. "I drew something," she said. She handed me a crumpled sheet of notebook paper. It showed a building with windows and flowers and a big sign on top, Jess's Place. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You built something," I told her. "You're building with me already." She smiled, shy and proud, and ran off again. I didn't return to the table immediately. Instead, I walked the garden path just outside the patio doors. It was quiet out there, save for the hum of cars on the nearby road and the soft chirp of a distant bird. There, at the far end of the path, stood a marble plaque mounted in a bed of lavender. I approached and read the inscription. Karen Harper, Advocate for Women in Hospitality. My breath caught. Below her name was a quote etched into the stone. "We rise by building tables for others." My line, my quote, my voice, repurposed for her legacy. I blinked back the sting of disbelief. Below it was a QR code. I scanned it. Up came an article, one I had never seen, featuring Karen, praising her contributions, highlighting a community kitchen program I had designed. My scholarship application essay, word for word, attributed to her. That was the moment it stopped being subtle. They didn't just forget me. They replaced me. I stood frozen, the phone still in my hand, the plaque mocking me with its permanence. That quote had taken me days to write. I'd poured myself into it, back when I still believed recognition came from effort, not manipulation. Footsteps approached. I didn't turn immediately. Only when I felt the silence settle beside me did I glance to my right. Michael. He didn't speak. just handed me a small, white envelope. "Still want to keep your name on the paperwork after this?" he asked gently. I raised an eyebrow. "Only if you're okay sharing the headline." He gave a soft smirk. "Hyphenated works for me." Before I could respond, a small voice rang out behind us. "Wait, he's your fiancé?" Lily had followed us, her eyes wide with wonder. I laughed. "Yes, sweetheart." She beamed like I'd just told her she could live in a candy store. I bent down, kissed her forehead. "You're the only one who noticed anything real tonight." And she was. She'd seen through the curated chaos, past the photo ops and legacy theater. She saw me. Not the version my family edited out. Me. Back inside, the air was tight. The performance had returned. My family sat like mannequins, postured and posed. But their expressions had changed. Stiff. Watchful. Like they knew the script was over and hadn't been cast in the sequel. I walked in, heels silent on the hardwood, the envelope tucked into my clutch. I didn't take my seat. Instead, I stood at the head of the table, raised my glass, not in celebration, but as punctuation. "This will be the last dinner where you control my name," I said. Karen scoffed. "What does that mean?" I placed the folded magazine article in front of her. "It means you don't get to edit me anymore. Check tomorrow's press release. The truth won't be footnoted." My mother's jaw flexed, but she didn't speak. Emily's face flushed a dark red. Her husband looked anywhere but at me. "You can't do this," she finally choked out. "We're family." I tilted my head. "Family doesn't erase lives, it protects them." And then, calmly, I said the line that landed like thunder. "You were never scared of my silence. You were terrified of what I might say if I ever decided to speak." The air flattened like someone had pulled the plug on oxygen. Even the waitstaff paused. The lights above the table seemed to dim slightly, as if the room was holding its breath. I pulled a cream folder from beneath my chair. Documents I'd brought, not for vengeance, but for clarity. I laid them out, one by one. Founding grants, forged transfer forms, email headers, donation letters, my EIN number. Karen leaned forward, visibly stunned. "These were you?" I didn't even look at her. I turned toward the screen behind the bar. Michael tapped his phone. The screen lit up with a slide, the original wire transfer from my account to the restaurant's first lease. Emily went pale. "You forged her name?" "Every plate, every table, every training manual you pretended didn't matter. I wrote them. I built what you enjoy, and now I own it." I placed one final sheet down. My scholarship essay. "This quote," I said, "was mine. You etched it in stone. You stole a voice and gave it a new author. But that voice never left. It just waited." The table was silent. Chairs creaked slightly. Karen finally snapped. "You made your point." I smiled faintly. "Not yet." I turned toward Lily. "Would you like to go home with me tonight?" She looked toward her mom. Karen didn't even move. "Only if I can fold napkins like you taught me," she whispered. I bent down and kissed her cheek. "Then let's go." I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to win. I'd already built something louder than their silence, a life that didn't ask for space because it built the whole damn table.